I've always found long drives therapeutic, especially at night. There's something calming about empty roads, the hum of tires against asphalt, and the rhythmic flicker of passing streetlights. I took night shifts whenever I could, delivering packages for a logistics company that rarely cared who drove as long as the job got done. That Thursday night was different, though. The weather was calm, the playlist was mellow, and I was ahead of schedule. Around 2:30 a.m., I was driving through a rural stretch of highway between two small towns in northern Oregon, the kind of place where even gas stations close by midnight. That's when I saw him. A lone figure standing on the side of the road, just beyond the reach of my high beams. He wasn't waving or signaling, just standing completely still, facing the road. I slowed down instinctively, even though something in my gut clenched with unease. He stepped forward slowly as my headlights lit him up. Mid-30s, maybe, wearing a dark hoodie, jeans, and a large black duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Nothing seemed obviously wrong, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way he didn't blink as I pulled up, or the way he smiled, just a bit too late, like he had to remember how to do it. I rolled down the passenger window halfway. "Need a ride?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. He leaned in just enough for the light to catch his eyes. They were gray, not light gray, steel gray, and too sharp, like glass shards under ice. "Yes," he said, voice calm, steady, almost rehearsed. I unlocked the door. He climbed into the passenger seat without a word and set the heavy duffel bag on his lap. Not in the back seat, not at his feet, on his lap, like he didn't want to let it out of his sight. I offered a polite smile. "Where you headed?" He turned slowly to look at me, then said, "As far as you'll go." That was vague. I chuckled nervously. "Well, I'm heading to Grey Ridge, about 70 miles out." He gave a single nod, like that was all the information he needed. I tried to return to the music, but the silence between us felt heavy. I reached to turn the volume up, a soft indie track playing, but he quietly said, "Could you turn that off?" It wasn't rude, it wasn't aggressive, but it was final. I turned the music off. The next few miles crawled by. He didn't speak, didn't fidget, didn't scroll his phone, just sat perfectly still, both hands on the duffel bag, eyes forward. I couldn't even hear him breathe. I cleared my throat. "You from around here?" A pause, then not anymore. "Got family nearby?" Not anymore. It was like talking to a shadow. About 20 minutes in, I noticed something. There was no reflection of him in the passenger side window. I don't mean like, oh, it was faint. I mean, there was literally no outline. The seat looked empty in the glass. I blinked, shook my head, looked again. He was sitting there, the bag on his lap, watching the road. But in the window, only the landscape behind us moved. I didn't say anything, just gripped the steering wheel tighter. Then he spoke, breaking the silence. "Do you believe in justice?" The question came out of nowhere, delivered in a voice so low and steady it sent a chill down my spine. I glanced over. He was staring straight ahead. "I guess so," I said carefully. "Why?" He didn't answer, just smiled, slow, subtle, unsettling. The highway stretched into the dark, but suddenly the air inside the car felt smaller, denser, like the night was following us in. I kept driving, eyes locked on the double yellow lines ahead, like they were the only thing keeping me grounded. I didn't want to look at him again. Something about the air, the stillness in the cab felt wrong, like the silence was pressing against my eardrums. After another few miles, we passed a road sign. Gray Ridge, 42 miles. Almost there. I just had to keep going. No more small talk. Then the hitchhiker spoke again, voice smooth like a knife on wet stone. "Do you know what it's like to be erased?" That made me look. His head was tilted slightly toward me, though his eyes still stared at the road. "Sorry?" I asked, more confused than anything. "To have your name spoken less and less, until no one remembers you were ever here." I forced a dry laugh. Can't say I do." He finally turned his head fully toward me. "You will." The headlights flickered, just for a split second, not off, just dimmed, like the battery dipped, but it was enough to make my heart stutter. I glanced at the dash. Everything was fine. Engine steady, no warning lights. Still, I reached for the climate controls, pretending to adjust the vents just so I could do something. My fingers trembled slightly. Then he asked, "Do you always drive this route?" I hesitated. "Sometimes." "Do you ever pick up a hitchhiker before?" "No," I answered honestly. "You're the first." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it, just teeth. "People like you are the reason I still exist." Before I could ask what the hell that meant, the car suddenly jerked to the side. I grabbed the wheel with both hands and swerved back into the lane. A pothole? No, nothing was there. But in the rear-view mirror, just for a blink, I saw something in the road behind us. It looked like a second me, standing exactly where we'd just passed. And it was smiling. I slammed the brakes for a second. Not enough to stop the car, but enough for my chest to lurch. I looked again into the rear-view mirror. Empty highway. No one was there. Just darkness. "You okay?" he asked, still calm, still watching me. I swallowed hard. "Thought I saw something." "Don't worry. You're just seeing what's already behind you." I tried to chuckle. "That's cryptic?" He didn't reply. The temperature inside the car felt colder now. I checked the climate controls. The heat was on, and yet my breath was visible. A thin, misty cloud hovered in front of my lips with each exhale. I glanced at him again. He wasn't breathing. Not slowly, not heavily, not at all. He just stared forward, perfectly still, both hands resting on the duffel bag like a coffin in his lap. My fingers itched to reach for my phone, call someone, anyone, but I didn't want to trigger him. Something about this man made every primitive instinct in my brain scream, "Don't provoke, don't ask, just drive." We passed another sign. Gray Ridge, 33 miles. Still too far. Suddenly, he whispered, almost to himself, "You know what the funny thing is? Every time I do this, they always try to forget. But forgetting doesn't stop it. It just makes it worse when I return." "When you return?" He turned to me, and for the first time his expression changed. Not just a smile or a glance, but his whole face shifted. His features seemed darker, deeper. His skin grayed like old ash. "Yes," he whispered, "I've ridden with you before. You just don't remember." My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I forced a breath through my nose and asked, "What do you mean, you've ridden with me before?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly unzipped the duffel bag on his lap. My eyes flicked over, just for a second, not wanting to look, but unable to stop myself. Inside, I expected something obvious, a weapon, a mask, something that explained this growing fear in my chest. But instead, I saw folders, thick manila folders, the kind you see in old filing cabinets, each one labeled in blocky, faded handwriting. He pulled one out and held it without opening. "Sometimes people have to be reminded who they are or what they've done." I let out a shaky breath. "Look, man, I don't know what this is about. If you're trying to scare me, it's working, but I've never met you before." He tilted his head. "Haven't you?" I snapped. "No, I've never seen you in my life." He placed the folder on the dashboard, gently, like it was fragile, then turned it toward me. The label reads, "Case R. Walker, Incident Number 4. I blinked. That was my name, full name, middle initial and everything. My hands loosened on the wheel for just a second. "What the hell is this?" He opened the folder. Inside were photographs, black and white, blurry but unmistakable. Me, in my car, driving on what looked like this same road. Different nights, different seasons, always alone, always driving, and always with him in the passenger seat. One photo sent a jolt through my spine. It was me, eyes wide, mouth open, like I was screaming. His shadow next to me. Same bag, same hoodie, same eyes. I don't understand," I muttered. "You do. You're just pretending not to." I gripped the wheel so tightly I thought it might snap. The photos were detailed. Some were taken from outside the car, like from a distance, through the windshield. Others were from angles that didn't make sense, as if the camera had been hovering just inches from my face. In one, I was asleep at the wheel. In another, I looked directly into the lens, eyes hollow. My skin prickled. "How did you get these?" I asked, voice thin, barely there. He didn't answer, just flipped the photos back into the folder with precision and tucked it into the bag again. His movements were slow, deliberate, like someone performing a ritual they'd done 1,000 times. I needed to get away. I needed light, noise, something to anchor me. I glanced at my phone on the dash. Dead. It had been charging earlier. I could have sworn it was at 70% just an hour ago. I checked the clock on the dash. 2:41 a.m. That was strange. It had been 2:41 when I picked him up. I tapped the screen. Nothing changed. The digital numbers glowed, frozen in time. I looked outside. The road ahead stretched into darkness, unchanging. No signs, no cars, just blacktop and trees. The same scenery, mile after mile. I checked the gas gauge. Full. My stomach dropped. "Have we been driving in circles?" I whispered. He smiled. "You're not driving at all," he said. I looked down. My hands were off the wheel, but the car was still moving. My hands were in my lap, just resting there. But the wheel turned gently on its own, adjusting slightly with each curve of the road. I yanked my hands back up, gripped the wheel tight again, like a child clinging to a stuffed toy in the dark. The car didn't react. It just kept going. I pressed the brake pedal. Nothing. The resistance was there, but no slowing. I shifted gears. No sound. The RPM didn't even twitch. It was like the car was pretending. "No," I whispered, "this isn't real." I turned to the hitchhiker. He was watching me with those unblinking steel-gray eyes, still calm, still holding that damned bag. "Tell me what this is. What's happening to me?" He tilted his head. "I already have," he said softly. "Many times." I clenched my jaw. "Stop with the riddles. Just say it." He turned his gaze forward again. "You were warned. Every time you're warned. And every time you make the same choices." I shook my head violently. "I don't even know you!" He reached into the bag again and pulled out a different folder. This one didn't have a label. He opened it and held it up. It was a police report. My name at the top, my license number, my car. The incident field said DUI, fatality, 2 deceased, 1 survivor. My eyes scanned lower. Photos, crashed vehicle, blood, a child's backpack, a wedding ring. "No," I said, voice cracking. That didn't happen." "You don't remember?" he asked. "I've never killed anyone," I shouted. He didn't flinch, just looked at me. "But you did." And suddenly, I remembered the sound of metal, the weightlessness, the cold, the child's scream. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel. "No!" Outside the window, the trees vanished, replaced by a blank gray mist. The road was gone. Only the hum of the engine remained. The fog outside swallowed everything. Trees, sky, even the road beneath us. It was like the world had folded in on itself, and all that remained was the car, floating through an endless, featureless void. I could feel my heartbeat hammering in my throat. My breath came shallow, ragged. This isn't happening. This isn't real. This is a dream. The hitchhiker didn't respond. He just opened the glove compartment without asking. I didn't stop him. Inside was a photo I didn't recognize. Until I did. Me, standing next to my car, smiling, arms around a woman and a little boy. My fiancé, her son from her first marriage. We were on our way to meet her parents. The memory hit me like a brick through glass. I remembered the music we were playing, the jokes we were telling, the fact that I'd had just one drink at lunch and convinced myself it was fine. The intersection had no stoplight. The other car didn't have a chance. I had buried it, rewritten the story, told myself they were the ones hit by a reckless driver. But now I remembered everything. I pulled over, or thought I did. But the car didn't stop. It just kept drifting through the mist. "I'm dead," I whispered. The hitchhiker finally turned to me again. "No, not quite, not yet." "Then what is this? Where are we?" He rested a hand on the duffel bag, almost gently. "This is the road back, but it only opens when you're ready to face what you ran from." "And if I don't want to go back?" He nodded slowly. "Then we keep driving, just like you have, again and again." I sat in silence, the hum of the car echoing inside my skull like a lullaby meant to numb. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just stared at the nothingness outside, watching the mist ripple like water around the edges of my headlights. "So what?" I finally asked. "I just keep reliving this forever?" The hitchhiker didn't answer immediately. He reached back into the duffel bag and pulled out a third folder. It looked newer than the others, crisp edges, bright white paper. He handed it to me. Inside was a single page, a name I didn't recognize, a date that hadn't happened yet. Then I saw the words: potential outcome, intervention, admittance, closure. I looked up at him. This is a chance?" He gave the faintest nod. "You can choose," he said. "You can take responsibility. Remember, speak the truth, live with it, and move forward." I stared at the paper, the letters dancing in and out of focus. "And if I don't?" He looked out the windshield, into the mist that no longer resembled any road I knew. "Then we keep driving until you forget again, and I'll be waiting, just like always." I felt my fingers tighten around the page. A war erupted inside me. One part of me wanted to throw the folder out the window, deny everything, scream that I was a victim of a nightmare I didn't create. The other part, the one that had been silent for years, whispered, "You owe them more than denial." I looked back at the hitchhiker. His face was still calm, unreadable, but in his eyes, for the first time, I saw something that hadn't been there before. Pity. The folder in my lap felt heavier than anything I'd ever held. Heavier than guilt. Heavier than the night I drove away and let the truth slip through my fingers. I looked out the windshield. Nothing but mist, like the world was holding its breath. "I'm scared," I said finally. My voice was small, like a child's. The hitchhiker didn't move. "Of course you are. That means you're finally seeing the road." I closed the folder and held it against my chest. My heart thudded beneath it, like it was trying to break free, or maybe hide. "What happens if I go back?" He tilted his head slightly, like a teacher watching a student get close to the answer. "You'll wake up in a hospital bed, with a fractured leg, broken ribs, and a mountain of legal weight waiting for you." "And the rest of my life?" "That's the part that hasn't been written yet." The car began to slow. I hadn't touched the brakes. The fog outside began to thin. Faint outlines of trees appeared, the faint glow of early morning. I looked at him again. "Why are you here?" I asked. He didn't blink. "I'm the one who makes sure you get this moment." "You're not real." He gave the ghost of a smile. "I'm real enough to remember what you forget every time." The engine purred low. The dashboard flickered. My phone screen lit up. Battery 67%. The clock changed. 5:17 a.m. We had moved. Somewhere. My hands were sweating. I gripped the folder tighter. "I want to go back," I whispered. "Even if it hurts, even if it ruins me." The hitchhiker nodded. Then, slowly, he reached for the duffel bag and zipped it shut. The moment he zipped the bag, the hum of the car vanished. Not faded, vanished. The world went silent. No engine, no tires, no wind, just the sound of my own breathing, sharp and ragged, and the soft thump of my pulse in my ears. Then impact. A rushing pressure against my chest. Lights, voices, pain. Bright white slammed into my senses like lightning through a closed window. My eyes snapped open. Fluorescent bulbs. A heart monitor beeped steadily to my left. The taste of metal in my mouth. Bandages, dry throat, and something else. The weight of memory. I turned my head slowly. Every part of me ached like I'd been dragged through concrete. My leg was suspended in a brace, my ribs wrapped tight. Outside the hospital window, dawn, orange and soft, like the light was apologizing for coming back. A nurse walked in, paused when she saw I was awake. "You're lucky," she said gently. "You've been out for almost 2 days." I nodded, or tried to. She adjusted something in the IV. "They said you were in shock. Do you remember what happened?" I swallowed. "Yes," I said, "I do now." She smiled sadly and said nothing. Later that day, a police officer came, clipboard in hand, grave eyes. He explained the charges, the blood alcohol level, the investigation. He didn't treat me like a monster, but he didn't treat me like a victim either. Just a man who made a choice and would now live with the wreckage. After he left, I asked the nurse if anyone had come to visit. She shook her head. "Not yet, but someone left this earlier." She handed me a sealed envelope. No name, no return address. Inside, a single photograph. Me, driving at night, and in the passenger seat, a shadow with steel gray eyes. The court proceedings were quiet. I didn't fight the charges. I didn't hire some flashy lawyer to argue technicalities or delay the inevitable. I pled guilty. Voluntary manslaughter, DUI, reckless endangerment. The judge didn't look angry, just tired, like he'd seen too many of me. Men who thought one drink couldn't change your life, or take 2. The sentence was fair, maybe even lenient. 6 years, possibility of parole in 3, probation after that, mandatory rehab, counseling, restitution. Some people would say I got lucky. They'd be wrong. There's no sentence heavier than memory. In prison, I kept to myself. I didn't get into fights. I didn't join any groups. I just listened and wrote. I wrote letters I could never send. One to her, one to the boy, one to myself. Sometimes I'd see him, the hitchhiker, in the corner of my cell. Not clearly, just a flicker, a shape, a feeling, like part of me was always watching, waiting to see if I'd break again. But I didn't. I stayed sober. I went to every counseling session. I told the truth every time, even when it made me look worse, especially then. The dreams came and went, always the road, always the silence, sometimes the folder in my lap. But in some dreams, just a few, the car eventually stopped, and I got out. I was released just after my 39th birthday. It didn't feel like freedom, not right away. The air felt too light, the world too loud. There were no more walls, but somehow the space felt smaller. I found work through a halfway program, warehouse night shift, honest labor, long hours, no questions. I didn't own a car anymore, didn't trust myself behind the wheel. I walked everywhere, bus when needed, rain or shine. The counselor said it was good, a kind of penance, rebuilding discipline from the ground up. Sometimes I agreed. Other times I just couldn't stomach the sound of tires on pavement. Once while walking home late, I saw a man standing on the side of the road, hoodie, bag in hand, still, silent. My heart stopped, my legs froze, but when I blinked, he was gone. Only the night remained. I started volunteering at a grief support group 6 months after release. Sat in the back for weeks before I said a word. And when I did, I didn't tell them everything, but I told enough. And when I looked up, no one spat, no one left. A man approached me after, said, "My brother did what you did, never talked about it, took his own life 5 years later." He didn't say it kindly, but he said it honestly. I thanked him for it. Some nights I write, not letters anymore, but thoughts, memories, things I want to forget but won't let myself. The counselor says that's healing. I think it's survival. And every once in a while, when I pass by the highway in the early morning, I glance out at the shoulder, just in case he's still standing there.
1 year after my release, I returned to the intersection. The one from the report, the one from the folder. There's no memorial there, no flowers, no signs, no names etched into stone. Time had worn the pavement smooth again, like the road had forgiven what I couldn't. I parked on the shoulder. Not my car, I still didn't drive, but a friend from the support group had agreed to take me, sit quietly in the truck while I stood there alone. I brought nothing with me, no speech, no photos, no candle, just silence. And then I heard the sound. Footsteps on gravel, soft, slow. I turned. He was there. The same hoodie, the same duffel bag, the same impossible eyes. But this time I didn't feel fear. He nodded once. I stepped toward him, 1 step, 2, close enough to see the fine cracks in his skin like old porcelain. "Are you still waiting?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not anymore." He opened the duffel bag. Inside, nothing, just light. Not blinding, not heavenly, just warm. He looked at me and said quietly, "You carried it far enough." Then he turned and walked down the road. No car came, no sound followed, just the echo of gravel under boots until there was nothing at all. I stood there for a long time, not crying, not smiling, just still. For the first time in years, months passed. The road faded behind me, but never fully disappeared. I didn't try to erase it, didn't try to forget him. Some memories aren't meant to vanish. They're meant to guide.
I kept walking forward, not to escape, but to arrive, wherever that meant. I still volunteer at the grief group. Some nights I just sit in the back and listen. Other nights I speak. Sometimes I see the way someone in the room looks at me, eyes tight, fists clenched, thinking I don't deserve to be there. And they're not wrong, but I stay anyway. Because not everyone gets the chance to carry the weight. And if I was given that chance, even if it came wrapped in fog and silence and steel gray eyes, then I owe it everything. I still don't drive, but I walk the road sometimes, at dawn, when it's quiet, when the world feels paused. The other day I passed a man standing on the shoulder, hoodie, bag, but it wasn't him. It was just a kid waiting for a bus. Still, I stopped, just for a second. I nodded to him. He didn't nod back, but he looked me in the eye. And for a moment I thought, maybe someone else is walking their road now. Maybe someone else is carrying their own folder with names, photos, truths they've buried. Maybe we all are. And maybe the best we can do is not to forget, but to keep moving anyway.